The fighting game community is filled with small, passionate communities that have kept games alive years and even decades after their release. From Third Strike to Melee, games that long ago faded into obscurity or were replaced with new versions are kept alive by the fans who fell in love with them all those years ago, and the new converts they bring in all these years later. The game we're talking about today never got the chance to build up a legacy fan base outside of Japan. It languished in almost perfect obscurity for decades, only coming to light thanks to the persistent dedication of a few individuals who stumbled upon this hidden gem. This hidden gem is filled with some of the wildest, most overpowered bullshit you'll ever see in a fighting game. This is Sailor Moon S. Released for the Super Famicom in 1994. The game was developed by future Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball FighterZ creators Arc System Works. The game is based on the popular anime and manga series Sailor Moon and is set during the third season of the anime. Its 9 playable characters come from the series' main cast, known as Sailor Scouts, Sailor Venus, Sailor Mars, etc., along with the addition of Chibi Moon, Sailor Moon's daughter from the future. On its surface, Sailor Moon S looks like a standard fighting game, with typical Street Fighter-esque movement inputs and super moves which become available at low health. Where the game departs from its peers is in the freedom of expression and truly insane things that characters can do.
And I sat down and tried the game, and it felt kind of like, it was like playing ST. If you've ever played Street Fighter 2 Turbo, that game is very busted, but it's very fun, but it's very kind of silly in terms of like the things you can do to people. Things, you can die immediately in ST, right? Like, you know. And so Sailor Moon kind of felt like that, which initially made it like fun to jump into, but also like the ease of execution to like get going. So doing stuff like that in ST is very hard. The way the game reads inputs is very strict. Sailor Moon, it was a lot easier to jump into.
And we really want to emphasize the insanity of this game. Sailor Moon S is utterly unbalanced, bordering on being completely broken. From overwhelming command grabs to unbalanced chip damage to 100% combos, there are a lot of mechanics that simply wouldn't fly in any modern fighting game. One of the most unique examples of Sailor Moon's spaghetti code is Chibi Moon's infinite backdash. By implementing frame-perfect inputs, she can cancel backdash into backdash into backdash into backdash into backdash ad infinitum and avoid all damage forever. There are plenty of fighting games with crazy damage combos or broken mechanics, but what makes Sailor Moon S unique is its accessibility to newer players. More than most games of the time, Sailor Moon S has a very forgiving frame window to execute complicated inputs. Some moves, like that infinite backdash, do require extremely precise timing, but compared to even many games that released well after it, Sailor Moon S allows newcomers to execute cool special moves that might be too difficult to execute in other games.
It's a very brutal game. I won't sugarcoat it because you can make one mistake against any of the characters and die. One thing that Sailor Moon teaches that I feel like a lot of fighting games, especially modern fighting games, don't teach you is patience and spatial awareness. If you make one mistake in Sailor Moon, you're dead. You learn not to make mistakes very fast. So I feel like if you're losing a lot in other fighting games, this is a great game to pick up to learn not to lose in the manner that you're losing.
Best Sailor Moon, like, period.
Oh! Nice punish! With the thumbs up!
With no North American release, there wasn't much of an early scene for Sailor Moon S in North America. Some of the FGC Old Guard had no doubt traveled to Japan and experienced the game, but even in Japan, the game wasn't a smash success. Fortunately, Sailor Moon S had one person who would eventually be responsible for bringing the game overseas.
I stumbled upon old videos from a Japanese Third Strike player named Koshun, who was also really big into the Sailor Moon S game. Through YouTube, someone had ripped them from his Nico channel and put them on YouTube. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, a Sailor Moon game, and it looks pretty crazy.
In the early 2010s, Missing Person was a fighting game player in St. Louis who occasionally traveled to locals, but spent a lot of time at home exploring fighting games. After coming across Koshin's video on Sailor Moon, he began digging into the game, keeping his findings to himself as sort of a secret personal project. However, years later, after moving to Toronto, he finally decided to show this niche little game to other players.
And at one point, I'm part joking. I was just like, you know what? One day I'm going to bring a Super Nintendo and I'm going to bring Sailor Moon because I bought a cart. I'm like, and we're going to play this because it's a pretty good game. And they're just kind of laughing it off. Like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And then one time I made good on that. I brought it and we played it on the crappiest CRT on the planet at our local esports bar. And it attracted this crowd around it. There was like a rotating group of like, I'd say around 10 people that would play their tournament matches, come back to the bar where we're playing Sailor Moon. And it just kept happening. So I kept bringing it and we'd just be playing casuals and there would just be people that just huddled around it.
As Sailor Moon S continued to draw in curious spectators, Missing Person decided to run a side event at Canada Cup 2017. 22 people signed up, a solid number for an obscure fighting game that no one had ever heard of. One of those 22 just happened to be a well-known Japanese Super Turbo player, Koemon. Koemon came up in the same arcade as Koshin, and through this connection, Missing Person was able to connect with the Japanese veteran via Twitter. After Canada Cup 2017, what began as a curious side bracket became a staple of Toronto weeklies.
So we played this side tournament, and then Neil Russell, who runs Toronto Top Tiers, which is one of the biggest orgs within Toronto that runs fighting game tournaments, he entered and got second and saw the potential in the game and was just like, you want to run this at our weeklies? So I started running weekly tournaments for the game, which ended up the last game that would be streamed every weekly.
With awareness for the game slowly growing, more scenes began to crop up. Sailor Moon S was on a slow, methodical trajectory, but was about to get a huge shot in the arm. As the scene was pushing signups for Anime Evo 2018, popular FGC YouTuber Kore Gaming released a video titled The Effects of Salt, which featured several minutes dedicated to discussing the Sailor Moon scene. Signups for the tournament at Anime Evo exploded overnight, and to this day, many players credit that video with introducing them to the game. Then, everything came full circle at Canada Cup 2018, when the Sailor Moon S community finally got a chance to meet the man responsible for the game's success, Koshin himself. The local scene invited him to attend and even paid for his travel to the event.
That was kind of like the moment where we were able to see, all right, this guy is the Japanese master of this game, and we wanted to see how well we could stack up with someone that had such knowledge about the game. The lessons that we learned from him and the time we got to spend with him was just like invaluable. It sped up the progression of the meta in our tournament scene.
Ball chip, he needs to get the ball chip. Oh! He got the 50%! He got the lariat combo! Let's go! Let's go!
Koshin would depart Canada Cup 2018, having gotten to meet the people who were keeping his beloved game alive across the world. In return for introducing them to Sailor Moon S, the local community sent Koshin home with a piece of tech that they had developed which allowed the game to be played on a traditional fight stick rather than a Super Nintendo controller, which he had been stuck using all these years. Local scenes would continue to grow across the NA region in Florida and across California. At EVO 2019, St. Louis player Kalen Ramos claimed first place, a sort of cosmic nod to the fighting game scene that Missing Person had belonged to all those years before.
It was just funny for me to see the scene that I grew up in start to adopt this game when I had never even thought to bring it out. But we were in an era where Street Fighter V was so polarizing, Marvel Infinite was polarizing, so someone brings in this very simple but very deep game like Sailor Moon at that point, and it kind of filled a vacuum within their scene.
As with every other fighting game scene, COVID-19 dealt a devastating blow to Sailor Moon S's momentum. The game had thrived off of spectator interest in its side events and big majors, but when lockdown started, the Sailor Moon community joined all the other FGC scenes in figuring out how to survive online. While Sailor Moon S does have netplay capabilities, and several online events have taken place, there are many players who have chosen to wait until they can play in person once more. The scene maintains an active Discord, and improvements to the netplay experience saw a new wave of members enter the community at the end of 2020. As we look to the end of 2021, and the return of offline majors, the community is gearing up to make its own triumphant return. The story of Sailor Moon S is the story of how a game can survive off of the efforts of just one person, even if it takes years for that difference to take shape. Akshon had no way of knowing that a translated version of a Nico Nico video and a single YouTube video made 9 years ago could lead to all of this. After learning about the North American scene, Akshon revived his YouTube channel to give the community more content to aid in its development. He began interacting with NA players on Twitter, and to this day, is still an active member of the community. In April of this year, he taught Sailor Moon S to fighting game legends Momochi and Haitani. Long before multi-million-dollar prize pools and franchise leagues, esports thrived off of the passion of the few individuals willing to go above and beyond to ensure that other people had a chance to experience their favorite games. The fighting game community still embodies that passion to its very core. As fighting game majors return and its figureheads continue pushing the spread of their games, for Sailor Moon S, the sky isn't even close to the limit. What are your thoughts on Sailor Moon S? Is its lack of balance what makes it fun? Can you see remnants of its gameplay in Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball FighterZ? Or does it really have something going for it as a legitimate esport? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason B, Brendan QB, David Foxy Iron, Lyra Mauve, Sierra Shampoo, Weeaboo Spartacus, and Yashichi for being platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Steven, Noodles, Marco, Mookie, and Orioriol for being diamond supporters. We'd also like to extend an extra special shout out to Fool from the Art of Warfare for being our Grandmaster supporter. Your continued support is much appreciated. If you also want to support our channel and unlock perks, check out the Patreon link in the description below or join our Discord server. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah, thanks for watching.